But yes, my name is Melinda Lake, and I'm the academic advisor for the athletic training program here at the University of Alabama. We are a 2-year master's program for athletic training certification. And I'm happy that you're with us today and hopefully going to answer some questions for you. Okay, so we'll just get started. The athletic training program is a 2-year graduate program here at the University of Alabama. And in this program, we are training students to become the best athletic trainers they can be. Not just teaching the minimum for athletic training, but going over and beyond what they're expected to know for the Board of Certification exam. Our program is 2 years, and it combines didactic and clinical work preparation for that exam and preparing our students for future careers in athletic training. Our program is designed in two different parts here. We mentioned the didactic and the clinical. The first one is the classroom. Okay, so we are, it's telling me I'm too quiet. Is everyone able to hear me? I think I've got problems with my computer, but hopefully we'll get through this.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, great. All right, so we have two sides of our program. You have the classroom setting and you have the clinical setting. So I'm going to address both of those for you. So first being the classroom or the academic setting. Our program is divided into 6 semesters. And when I say semesters, I have that in quote because we have fall and spring semesters in the 2 regular years, but we also have a summer 1 and summer 2 in the middle of those 2 academic years. So fall and spring the first year, summer 1, summer 2 in the middle, and then fall and spring of the second year. And I've got a slide here that hopefully shows you how that's all divided out. And the reason that we do this is because we have students working in clinical immersions over the summer. And I'm going to speak to that in just a moment, but I kind of wanted you to see where that would pop in. You have a first academic year. You're taking classes here on campus. We do have a couple of those classes that would be online, still be taking them here as a main campus student. Then you go off to your immersion in the summer. You're still taking 2 online classes in summer 1 and summer 2. And then you come back for your second year. You have a regular semester in the fall, and then your last semester, that spring, you're really involved in clinical immersion, preparing for the BOC, and then also 1 other class in manual therapy. So you can kind of see how the program is designed. You know, our students spend a good amount of time in the classroom. If we were to add that up, it would be a lot more than 46 credit hours over the total because we have a lot of students doing in their classroom work, they're also doing labs. And so we don't necessarily have you charge for those labs. So that's one advantage to our program. Even though the hours might look a little bit shorter than other programs, it's because we're not charging you for those extra labs. So we like to try to keep our costs to a minimum, but you're still getting all of that classroom and academic work and over the course of those 2 years. I'd also like to address the clinical side of the program. You know, hopefully you're taking everything that you're learning in the classroom and then applying that in the clinical setting. And here at the University of Alabama, we're really proud of the relationship that we have with our athletics department. We're not an athletics program, we're an academic program, but they allow our students to come into athletics and work at all 16 of our intercollegiate athletic sites. So students are placed in a clinical site their very first semester, and they're going to rotate to a new site every semester. That changes, but roughly by the semester. Sometimes we have preseason, postseason involved, but roughly speaking, you're at a different site every semester. And we also include 1 high school in your clinical rotations. This is one way we are different than some other programs. We have a lot of programs that'll do an 8 or 10-week clinical rotation and move on somewhere else. But we really felt like that full semester of clinical placement allows for a more in-depth experience and allows you to become an integral part of that healthcare team. And so that clinical semester, you are learning, something different than you might learn the next clinical semester. On average, our students work 25 to 35 hours a week. They work preseason, as I mentioned, or postseason. They get the opportunity to travel. They're involved hopefully in national championships and SEC championships and tournaments all across the country. So our students get the opportunity to see what it's like, not just every day working in the athletic training room, but being a part of those opportunities as well. So if a student has mastered a skill in the classroom, then they are able to perform that skill under the supervision of their preceptor within that clinical placement. We try to make sure that our students have a very good input into where they're going to be placed. We ask our students, if you are thinking you're going to work one day in professional sports, if you're thinking you want to work in Olympic sports, what are those goals that you have for yourself and how can we implement that into the clinical placement? So that becomes part of the conversation. But we also know that we want to make sure our students are abiding by our CADE standards. There are certain things that our students need to have as a part of this clinical rotation. There's a laundry checklist of things that we've got to mark off. So we want to make sure you're working with patients across the lifespan, working with patients, in a different setting, patients of opposite genders, all the kinds of things that we're trying to work into that placement. So that's certainly going to fill in some pieces of that puzzle. And then sometimes it's making a connection with a preceptor. Maybe you've identified an area of your clinical work where you need more help. We try to match you with a preceptor who can actually help you get those skills or do better in whatever those areas are. So sometimes it's matching a personality or a skill set, but all of those things go into deciding where you'll be placed in the clinical setting. And we have a clinical coordinator. Her name is Dr. Jerry Zemke, and she works with our students at least one time a semester, but usually much more than that, and talk to them about those goals and how they might change and how we can accommodate that in the clinical setting. So we don't guarantee our students get a specific, placement that they think is best for them. We talk to them about all of those things and why we've made a decision to put them in a certain clinical site. But our students certainly have some input into that decision. Okay, I'm just going to pause here just for a moment. That's just a brief overview of our program. I know we want to focus a lot on the application process, but before I move on, I want to make sure we don't have any questions or anything I need to address or change at this point. We can open it up to questions at the end as well if we need to. Not seeing anything pop in.
No, I don't see any, but they may come as you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to pause for a second. Sounds good. Okay, so we are now beginning, we will begin application process for this year. We set our priority deadline as September 10th because we are getting more and more early applicants. That we had several that came in even over the summer this year for the fall of next year. But generally speaking, students will apply around or before September 10th of the year prior to when they want to enter our program. We only start each program in the fall. We only have one cohort per year. They start in August. And so if you are applying to our program, you want to think about applying about a year in advance of when you want to start around that September. So our students right now we have about 10 or 11 students already applied, and we're going to start interviewing next week. So if you are hoping to be admitted for the fall of 2026 cohort, then I do encourage you to go ahead and get your application in really soon. Because we will start that process of review beginning on Monday. So how do you apply? The answer to that question is that you want to apply through the UA grad school. And as we go through this, you're going to notice that there are several things that we're going to be looking for as a part of that application. There are 4 big admission requirements that we are looking for. The first is probably the biggest, and that's a bachelor's degree from an accredited university or college. We do accept students from across all majors. The most common major we see is certainly kinesiology, but we have students that have come to us from other healthcare sciences, public health, nursing, even criminal justice. We've seen a lot of applicants from a variety of places, psychology. So there's not a preference given to a certain major. It's just that kinesiology seems to be a natural fit for a lot of students, and so that's what we see the most of. There is a minimum 3.0 GPA required. That's not just our requirement, that's our UA graduate school requirement. So a B average, and that's a cumulative GPA, and that means across all of your attempted coursework at the collegiate level. So it could be transfer credit that you've done at community college, or even dual enrollment that you did in high school. If it was a collegiate, credit, then we're going to include that in your cumulative GPA. So that needs to be at least a 3.0 or higher, and then a grade of C- on all of the prerequisites, which we'll look at in just a moment. You need to have at least some type of CPR certification. We do request that you do the basic life support certification, but that's not required. If you have some type of other certification, like you might have Red Cross or a certain different level within that American Heart Association, that's okay. We will do a program-wide certification if you're admitted and you come to our program, but we do want you to have some basic knowledge of CPR. And then the last thing is documentation of 60 hours of observations with a certified athletic trainer. And you can do that documentation. We have a form I can send you if you want to email me, or if you just have a spreadsheet or a Word document that you have that listed out, that's fine too. You just need to have it signed by the certified athletic trainer that you've worked with. So I mentioned that there are some prerequisites that we want our students to have before they come into our program. There are 9 of them, and if you look at that list, what you notice is that a lot of them are very science related. We have biology 1 with lab, chemistry 1 with lab, physics or biomechanics, I'll come back to that in just a moment, and then anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. So 5 of our 9 prerequisites are certainly lab sciences. We also require psychology, a class called Care and Prevention of Athletic Injuries, which goes by a number of names, and then exercise physiology and some class in statistics. So there are different classes that might meet these requirements. And if you're at a different university other than Alabama, and you have a question about a prerequisite, you're always welcome to send me an unofficial copy of your transcript, and I can tell you whether a class that you have may or may not count for one of these prerequisites. The one that I get the most questions about is this care and prevention of athletic injuries. That for Alabama, that's called ATR 257. We call that Intro to Athletic Training. You may see that as Intro to Sports Medicine. I've also seen it as just prevention of illness and injury in athletic populations. There's a lot of different names that you might see. So if you think you've had a class that might address those topics and you want to, for sure, let me know what the class title is. We might also ask for a syllabus just so we can check the topics that you covered. And then sometimes we might find that it might be a combination of 1 or 2 classes. So just let me know. If you don't have this class and you're looking for a way to take it, I can also recommend some places you can take it. Namely, here at Alabama, we offer it through our UA Online program. And then we can also find if there may be a community college or somewhere you might be able to take it. It's near you, maybe over the summer or during the regular semester. But I can always give you some recommendations. I'm happy to do that. So a C- or higher in all of our prerequisites. When you apply to our program, you need to have 7 of these 9 completed or in progress. So when you make your application, if you're still missing 2 and you're going to take those in the spring, that's okay. We just need to have at least 7 of 9 completed or in progress with a grade of C- or higher. And then if you are admitted to our program and you decide to come to our program, you would be admitted conditionally. And what that means is anything remaining, your prerequisites, any CPR training or hours of observation, anything that you don't have completed would need to be completed before you start the program in that following August. So the way to apply, we get a lot of questions about, do we use ATCAS? And if you're applying to other programs, you're going to notice that ATCAS is a really great way to send out your application to a number of places, but it can also get kind of expensive. And so we just made the decision that we use our graduate school portal. It has the same functionality as ATCAS, and that's why you won't see us on ATCAS. But you'll use our our graduate application through the University of Alabama. It can be accessed at graduate.ua.edu. And so you'll just start putting some information into the preliminary portion of that application. You'll have some demographic information and you'll have an account established. And then once you've done that, you'll have a portal. And within that portal, you're going to submit some documentation. The first one being your resume. Make sure that it is up to date and includes any relatable academic experience and any relatable clinical experience that you've had in athletic training. Your personal statement. This is just an essay. I've seen recently, we've had a couple of people turn in like a cover letter, and the information within that document is pretty much the same, but we really want it to be in the form of an essay. And it can be 2 to 3 pages or so. It's just really your way of telling us about your goals and why you think our program might match and align with the goals that you have for your own professional career. 3 letters of recommendation. At least one of them must be academic. They could all be academic, but at least one has to be academic. And we prefer that to be an academic relationship at the collegiate level. It can come from educators, employers, or other healthcare professionals. It just can't be a personal or mentor kind of relationship, but it needs to be some professional relationship. And this is easy to do. All you'll need to do, and I think Caitlin mentioned this a little earlier, all you'll need to do is go ahead and get an email address for the person who's going to recommend you, and you'll enter that in your portal when you're applying. And the graduate school will then forward an email to that person and give them a link to upload their letter. And once they do that, it will automatically be populated into your application portal. So 3 letters of recommendation. You can do more than 3 if you feel like one of them is not going to do it in time, or you're kind of in a time crunch. I would encourage you to do more than 3. As soon as you have those 3, we will move forward in the application process. You're also going to upload 60 hours of your observation experience. Like I said, you can document that however you like. That will go in the portfolio section of your application. And then any transcripts. So if you're a University of Alabama student, we will pull your transcripts. There's no need to order an official transcript. But if you're at another institution, you can also send an unofficial transcript at this point. We don't require official transcripts until you are admitted to our program and we matriculate you into our program. So if you just want to send us an unofficial transcript, that will be sufficient. You can save a little money that way. And we can use that for the initial part of your application. I will also say if you've had any course that's on that prerequisite list at a different college, so let's say you took your anatomy and physiology 1 and 2 over the summer at some community college, we'll need to get that unofficial transcript as well, and eventually that official transcript. Or if you have 15 hours or more at a different institution, we need that transcript as well. So just to kind of recap, you need an unofficial transcript from your primary institution, and then any other institution where you might have a prerequisite for 15 hours or more. So hopefully that's clear. But then we will require official transcripts later on if you are admitted to our program. So once you have submitted all of those documents to your portal, you're going to hit that submit button. And then when that application is submitted, it will go preliminarily through the UA Graduate School, and when it's met their criteria, it will then come directly to me, and I will go through it, and I'm going to audit it line by line. I'm going to go through and make sure that everything is in there that we need. And if it's in there, great, we'll move on. If it's not, I will reach out to you and say, hey, I need your CPR card, or, I'm missing one recommendation, or whatever it is. And then give you an opportunity to tell me your plan for completing that. But once we have all of your recommendation letters in, even if you haven't gotten everything else in, like your observation hours you're still working on, that's okay. But as long as we have everything else, including your recommendations, we'll move on to the next step of the process, and that is an interview. So I mentioned we start these interviews next week. We do these on a rolling basis, so we'll do several per week until we fill our cohort. The interviews are on Zoom, assuming my Zoom's working next week, we hope. But we'll do these interviews on Zoom. It is a professional interview. We will ask that you, dress appropriately and be prepared, sitting in a place that is free of distraction. The interview can be attended by as many as 7 or 8 people, depending on who's available. Those people who are on the committee will be there. You will get a list of questions in advance, so you kind of know exactly what we're looking for. We won't ask you all of the questions, but we will pick a few during your interview for you to respond. The interview is also your opportunity to ask us questions. This isn't a very general information session, but there are probably a lot of things that we're not going to cover that you might be interested in. So you can certainly use that time during your interview to ask questions about our program as well. And we encourage that. The interview lasts about 30 minutes. And once it's over, we will then go on to the next step of the application process, and that is scoring. We have a selection committee that is made up of our faculty, me as our program advisor. We have a couple of PhD students that may be included this year. So it could be, several people who are invested in the program in some form or fashion. But it's usually, like I said, 6 to 8 people, I would say, at the most. They will do individual scores. So we don't sit around in a conference room and review each one of these collectively. We do individual scoring on each of our applicants. And we do that not only for your interview, but also for your application file. And then we combine those scores and get an average to give us, our final score. And if it has met a certain threshold, which we don't publish, but if it's met that threshold or above, we do offer you admission. We do that until we have reached 30 admissions. We don't have more than 30 seats in our classroom, and that's really where that number comes from. Once we have offered 30, we consider ourselves full. And then the ball's in your court. If you have been admitted to our program, we're going to let you know and give you the opportunity to think about it. We certainly encourage you to do that. There's a lot that we know goes into that decision. Financial issues certainly come into play. Thinking about moving across the country, there are some people that are coming here from far away. So there are a lot of things to consider when you're making that decision. And we're not going to put pressure on you to decide, really quickly. We want you to take some time to know whether or not this is a great fit for you. So once you have made that decision, we do ask you to let us know. And then that's just one less seat we offer. So we do that on a rolling basis. I think our deadlines are a little bit confusing because, it's not that you have to apply by today or you don't have a chance. Today is the day we start that review process. So we want students who want to be in that first round of applicants to apply, starting today. That's why we have that September 10th priority deadline. But we will continue to review those applications on a week-by-week basis until we have offered those 30 seats in the classroom. So, we're starting that process on Monday, and that's why we want to go ahead and get this information out to everyone so that you have an opportunity to be a part of that first round of applications. All right, so that's really just the basic overview of things. I know that there may be some questions out there, so I'm going to stop the share. I did want to share my personal email address. It's really easy. It's mrlake@ua.edu. And if you'd like to schedule a time to meet with me one-on-one, assuming my Zoom is working, then I'd be happy to do that. Just let me know what dates and times are available for you, and I'll work you into my schedule, okay? So I already see we've got some questions down here in the chat, maybe. Let's take a look. Oh, great. Okay, Caitlin's sharing some things. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can read that one, and I shared several links. But yeah, someone did ask, do you have to have a current certification before submitting the application or just before you would start the program?
I think that you're talking about the CPR certification, and we do want it to be current when you apply. But you can go ahead and submit that application before you complete that CPR certification. I just need you to know the plan for that. So if you need to submit and you haven't completed your CPR, or if it's out of date, just shoot me an email and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and submit this to let you know I'm working on doing this by whatever time frame that is. And I will note that in your application. You would need to complete that CPR certification. If you're admitted, you would need to complete it before you start the program in August. So that would be considered conditional admission. Yes. Hopefully that answers the question. What other questions do y'all have?
After the interview, when will you know when you get an offer?
So, generally speaking, I would say you would know within 3 to 4 weeks. We're getting a lot of applications right now. There are a lot of a big volume of applications, and so we certainly don't want to take too little, we want to be able to make sure we're giving the time that we need to every applicant, and do that, making sure that we're reviewing every application and giving its due time. So we don't want to shortchange anyone. And so that may take a little bit longer just because of the volume of applications. But if it's pretty clear, that you're accepted to the program, then you would know, I'll say within a couple of weeks. But it could take, if we have a large number, it could take up to, 3 to 4 weeks to decide.
So someone else asked, one of the prerequisites is biomechanics, physics with lab. I've taken kinesiology last year. Would that cover the prerequisite?
Yes. And I apologize, did not come back to that. Yes. So one of our prerequisites, and one way we are a little bit different than other programs, is that we give the option of taking either physics with lab or biomechanics. We'll accept either one. For Alabama, that's kinesiology 365, or it could be ATR 305. So either one of those classes would count, and you would not need physics with lab in that case. Now, a lot of programs out there do require both. So I want to caution you that that's just our requirement, but you might find another program out there that requires both, and there many of them are requiring both. So, if you're applying elsewhere and you don't take the chance that you might need either or, until you know that you've not been accepted, you may need both.
Gotcha. So someone said, is the GPA requirement 3.0 overall or semester? And should I apply now if I have a 2.9 or should I wait?
So it is a cumulative GPA, so it's for everything that you've attempted at the collegiate level. But I do recommend that you go ahead and apply now. Don't wait until the end of the semester. There's a good chance we will be full, within 2, 3 months. We will be full probably by December, probably by November, if I had to guess at this point. So don't wait until the end of the semester to apply. Go ahead and apply. If you have less than a 3.0, you will still be considered. It's not an automatic no. We will look at a lot of things. We will pull your last 60 hours GPA, and that might be a little bit higher, so that might be in your favor. We will also consider everything else on your application. GPA is not the most important thing. It is the first thing that we use to sort of delineate our students. If it's too low, we're probably not going to review it, but if it's close, we're going to look at a lot of other things. 60 hours, the last 60 hours, we're going to look at your clinical experience, your recommendations, and your interview will go a long way. So it's not an automatic no if you're less than 3.0, but just understand that there are other things that we're going to need to be, in good condition on your application to make up for that deficit a little bit.
And this is actually a question for me based off of that. Do you go ahead and close the application as soon as your cohort is full?
We will. Yeah, we're going to try to close it as soon as we know. Now, sometimes we don't know because we've offered 30 and we haven't heard back from everyone yet. We don't generally, once we've said no to a student, we don't generally come back and make another offer. We've never done that before. If we offered 30 and only 10 said yes, then we might have to consider that because our numbers. But that's never been a problem. Just to give you some idea of how we've grown. In our first cohort, we had 14, our second 14. Our students that are getting ready to graduate this year, we have, right now there are 20, and we have 25 students that just started the most recent cohort. So we are continuously growing, and getting applications a lot earlier. And I really feel like those numbers will stay pretty steady around 25 to 30.
Yeah. And so I really want to reiterate because, rolling admission can be, confusing for people who aren't, and even for me, like, well, what does that mean? And every department's like,
Yeah,
well, we do it this way, and then other departments, but really looking
sure.
at that priority deadline, that's really what they mean. And again, they won't review applications after that unless they have to. So really trying to get your app, not to scare you guys, but really trying to get your application in like as soon as possible. Like really that October 1 deadline is not just a deadline to get your application fee waived, but that really should be your personal deadline to try to get your application in because like Melinda said, as soon as they've started reviewing applications, once they hit 30 and they've got those 30 great students, then, if you apply on October 5th and you're a great student, it's too late. So really,
And that did happen last year. It wasn't quite that early, but we had several applicants. We were full by Christmas. Last year, really before probably 1st of December, we were full, but we got several really good applicants in January. And we just had to tell them that we didn't have room. So
yeah.
I mean that's a good problem to have, I guess, not for the students, but we were in a good situation. We have a lot of great applicants last year. So you just don't want to wait too late. You don't want that to happen to you.
Mhm. Yeah.
One more question, and it's related to GPA, and I would need to know your specific information, how your institution, what that institutional GPA versus Regents GPA. The question is about which GPA we take. I know sometimes we see UA GPA, overall GPA and cumulative GPA. So there's a lot of different GPAs out there.
Mhm.
But I would need to know your specific institution and what they're including in that GPA to be able to answer that question. But just generally speaking, we're using GPA from everything you have attempted at your university and any other university you've attended.
Mhm.
So if that institutional GPA, it sounds like that's probably just what you've done there at that college. I don't know that for sure, but it would not be, it would be everything else. So everything you've attempted.
Mhm.
You know, hopefully that answers, but if it doesn't, shoot me an email or send me your unofficial transcript and I'd be happy to tell you which one we would use.
Did we talk about like tuition cost and things like that? They were asking about how much is the cost.
That's a good question. And so let me
Mhm.
exit out of this, get to my other screen.
And then others, someone else, which is related to this, they asked about funding opportunities as well.
Yeah. So I'll address that first, and then let me pull up cost of attendance, unless you have that, Caitlin. I don't have it in front of me. So graduate tuition at the University of Alabama currently for residents of Alabama, the state of Alabama, residents per semester is 5,842. Non-resident is 17,271. That's the most recent. Now that's subject to increase. That is through spring of 26, and obviously we're talking about fall of 26. So it could go up a little bit more from that, but that is per semester. Okay, so it could, if you're an out-of-state student, you can roughly bank on about $35,000 in annual tuition. Okay. And we know that's expensive, right? So we do. And, I think it's about looking for ways to offset those costs. And we tried to do that in a number of ways. Tuition, we don't have any control over. That's set by the University of Alabama. We don't have any control over that, but we try to mitigate costs in other places. Things like books, we've implemented a program now where you pay about $250, and that covers all of your books online for the entire program. That's sometimes you could spend that much on one or two classes. So that having all your books for a lifetime access over the whole program, that's one way we try to mitigate cost. But we know that's not enough. That's not a scholarship, right? And you have to be able to pay tuition. So we're obviously always looking at ways to do that. Sometimes students get scholarships through the National Athletic Training Association. In fact, we sent out an email to our current students right now about opportunities for that national organization, NATA, or our southeastern version of that, CATA, CETA, and then the Alabama version of that, ALTA. So students do get scholarships through our professional organizations. And then other outside scholarships like PFATs. We've had several students get PFAT scholarship through the Professional Football Association of Athletic Trainers. So there are external ways of funding that. And anytime we have that available, we send that to students. But then the graduate school sometimes they will offer fellowships. And I think right there, oh, great, thanks. They put those links out there. There are graduate fellowships available. They're given out by the graduate school, and they're pretty sweet. If you want to look at some of those websites, you'll see that they do cover a good bit of your cost. However, I tell students not to put all their eggs in that basket. We do nominate students for that, and it works kind of opposite from the way you do it as an undergrad. So when you're an undergrad, you apply and they give you a scholarship offer, and that kind of helps you make that decision. But for graduate school at the university, it's very different. You have to apply, be accepted, and then tell us that you're coming. We have to know you're coming, and you can request to be nominated for those fellowships. And I'll just be honest and be transparent. We have nominated students for those fellowships before, and we have yet to have a student accepted. There's always got to be the first one, right? So we will continue to do that. Somebody will get it, but you have to understand they're very competitive. We have about 100 of those across the entire graduate school. And there's over 6,000 students in the graduate school at different levels of graduate studies. So you're competing with people who, a lot of people and for a very short amount of resource. So that is something out there. We also have a few smaller scholarships within our program that we give out every year to current students that are endowed scholarships for people from our program. There's a citizenship award we give out, as well as a couple of scholarships endowed for Rodney Brown. He's a legend athletic trainer around here. They're not enough to cover tuition, but certainly does help. So those are voted on by the faculty, but again, you have to be involved here at the school already in our program. So that's not the best answer I would like to give and tell everybody we've offered funding to everyone. We also get questions about graduate assistantships. That's not something that we offer either. Unfortunately, if you're a GA for us, well, fortunately for us, you have to already be a certified athletic trainer to get a position like that with us because we have to get you to teach. So that's why we don't offer GA positions for our students in the program. You already have to be certified. So, having said that, we always are looking for ways to help students fund their education, and we make that available to students as soon as we know about it. We send that out. We keep a group message just for those type of opportunities that we give to our students, and they've been really successful in the past in getting a lot of external funding.
Yeah. Now, Melinda, do you have any students in your program who are grad assistants in other offices, like maybe with residents? I know with the program they have they're already doing so much, so I don't even know if it would be reasonable within their schedule to also work, um,
We do, and those, there are a handful of GA positions across campus in application, Caitlin mentioned something like housing or student affairs. We have one current student right now in our master's program who is a resident advisor manager. I don't know if that's her technical name, but she does get some tuition assistance, and she is kind of in charge of a bunch of RAs for one of the dorms, and she gets housing. So
mhm,
she's able to supplement not just her tuition, but her housing costs.
mhm.
And then
That
right
is
there, we posted
really
that student jobs website. That's a great one too. So we have students that have worked as tutors, that have had, work study opportunities as well. So there are ways to offset the funding as much as possible. We're going to make those opportunities available.
for sure. Um, and definitely, like Melinda said, oftentimes the assistantships that are posted on that website, you have to be admitted, which will be fine for you guys because you have to apply so early. But a lot of those positions typically don't aren't posted until the spring. And so it's kind of like you really, like you said earlier about the fellowships, you kind of already have to know you're coming and be willing to pay out of pocket or take out loans or whatever. And then on the back end is, oh, wait, now I get funding. So it's kind of, very backwards than your typical undergrad decision. But still, connecting with some current students, asking, what they've done or how they have figured it out. But really thinking about that, I know that's a really big decision. But with those student jobs, like Melinda said, there's a lot of external ones on campus that you could apply for that don't necessarily, they don't care what your major is really, like with housing and stuff. But that student jobs board, they will literally post the job for a week and then take it down. So, as soon as you're admitted, honestly, just set a calendar reminder to go and look at that board once a week and, apply for things that you'd be interested in or
I want to make sure I tell you all this too. First of all, in-state students, we're getting a lot more in-state students, and I'm not sure where everybody's from right here on the call, but I did want to make sure I said that in-state tuition is, it's not that much, right? It's about $5,800 a semester, so you're roughly looking a little over, about, 11 to 12,000 per year. But keeping in mind also that Alabama is one of the few states in the country who has passed a law that will help students on the back end. If you commit to staying in Alabama and working as an athletic trainer at a high school, not just local, but any high school in Alabama after you graduate, Alabama will give you about $7,500 in tuition reimbursement per year. And so that's up to, I think, maybe 3 years, 4 years. I think they'll do that. So you can get money back on the other side of it by staying in Alabama and working as an athletic trainer in the high school setting. So that is really unique, something that just passed last year. So if you're interested in that option, I can give you some more information if you want to reach out to me.
Yeah, that's great to know. Now I'm trying to be an
Yeah,
athletic.
it's really great. And that came about as a part of ALITA, who is our professional organization here in the state, lobbying our legislatures to let them know how important athletic trainers are and to help students get drawn to this field and stay in Alabama and work in our high school setting. So it's a great opportunity for students who want to work there. I'm just gonna say, you can always reach out to me. I check my email religiously, so if you have a specific question, you can email me. Or if you just want to sit down and talk on Zoom, one-on-one, I can absolutely do that. Just let me know what days and times you want to look at, setting something up. Thank y'all for joining us. I hope you got some good information today. And feel free to reach out if you have something else you want to ask.
All right. Thanks, Melinda. Good to see you. All right, we'll talk
Bye,
soon.
y'all.